Hey, what's up guys? My name is Adam and this is the Garage Gym Lab. If you're new to the channel, I make videos right here on YouTube about gym equipment reviews and home gym tips and advice. So if you're into that sort of thing, I definitely encourage you to subscribe below so that you can follow along. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite power bars. In fact, it's my #1 recommendation for a power bar under $350. And that's the Vulcan Absolute Power Bar version 2. Now this bar has one of the most amazing knurls I've ever felt. It has a great overall spec profile and it's priced really competitively. Now yes, there are a couple drawbacks with this bar as I'll go through in the review, but on the whole, this is just a really tough bar to beat. So let's get into it. Before I break down the individual bits of the bar, let's take a look at the overall spec profile. The bar weighs in at 20 kilograms. It measures 86.6 inches in length. It has a 29mm black oxide shaft with a 4.7-inch center knurl. The loadable sleeve length is 16¼ inches and it's finished in a matte chrome. So I want to kick this review off by talking about my personal favorite aspect of this bar, and that is easily the knurling. In my opinion, it's probably my favorite knurl of all the bars that I currently own, which includes the Rogue Ohio Power Bar, the Kabuki Strength Power Bar, and the more high-end Vulcan stainless steel power bar. I would definitely consider this knurl to be on the aggressive side, but I don't think that it's overly so. It's definitely less aggressive than the other 2 Vulcan power bars that I've used in the past. The interesting thing I find about this bar is that despite it having true points, it doesn't give me that really sharp sensation. Now, if you were to compare this bar to, say, the Rogue Ohio Power Bar, you'll note that there are a couple distinct differences. The first is that the Rogue Ohio Power Bar really has more of a volcano-like knurl, whereas this one is truly more of a mountain. The second thing is that I have found this bar to have a considerably higher points per square inch ratio than that of the Rogue Ohio Power Bar, and for that reason I get a really good grip on this bar, but again, without it being overly sharp. The one unique aspect about this knurl is the fact that the center piece is relatively passive. Now I feel like this is something that you're either gonna like or you're not gonna like. If you're a low bar squatter, for instance, and you really like that gritty, aggressive, stick to your back like knurl, then this one may leave a little bit to be desired for you. Now I'm primarily squatting high bar these days, so I personally find the centerpiece to be really comfortable, but I have used it in low bar and I didn't have any concerns with it slipping down my back at all. This is really just a personal preference of how aggressive you like your centerpiece, because this one really isn't that aggressive. Something I really like to point out on all of my bars, you've probably noticed this if you've read some of my other reviews, are the knurl termination points, or start stops as some people call them. And that's simply where the knurl ends and the smooth part of the bar begins. And I gotta say, Vulcan really did a good job here. It's very tight, it's clean, and it's not gonna affect performance at all, but I do think it's a real testament to their tooling process and really just the overall construction of the bar. All in all, guys, this bar just feels amazing. And I think one of the big reasons that it does feel so good is the fact that it has a black oxide finish. Now, this is not to be confused with black zinc, which is actually an applied coating that literally fills in some of the depth of the knurl and therefore interferes with the overall feeling. A black oxide is a conversion coating. It doesn't fill in any of the knurl, and therefore you're really getting a feel that you would normally find with a bare steel or even a stainless steel bar. Quick side note, Vulcan does have a higher end stainless steel power bar, inconveniently also named the Absolute Stainless Steel Power Bar, but please do not get confused. That is not this bar in a different finish. Okay, it's not like the Rogue Ohio Power Bar where you can go and get it in black zinc or stainless steel or bare steel or even Cerakote. The stainless steel Absolute Power Bar is a completely different bar from the Absolute Power Bar version 2. Now, of course, the big drawback to a black oxide bar is the fact that it's susceptible to oxidation over time. And this bar will certainly do that. If you train in a humid environment like I do, you need to regularly maintain the bar with oil, but eventually rust is going to set in. So you got to ask yourself if that's something that is going to be an important factor for you. Now, I've had this bar in my humid North Carolina garage for 6 months, and I got to say it's actually held up fairly well. But know that I'm also brushing this bar out after every use, and I'm hitting it with 3-in-1 oil at least once a month. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the shaft on this bar is 29 millimeters, which promotes a very stiff and rigid barbell. The tensile strength is 221,000, which makes it one of the highest that you can currently buy on the power bar market. So let's talk about sleeves for a second, because this bar does have a couple of unique characteristics. The first, and the one that you'll probably notice the quickest, is the fact that it has really deep grooves. And if you've read some of my other stuff, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of groove sleeves. I think that smooth sleeves look a lot better, and I think they sound a hell of a lot better. I find the sound that a groove sleeves makes to be extremely annoying, and I'm just not a big fan of it overall. And I'm also not really fully bought into the whole theory that it keeps the plates on better when you're not using a collar. I use a collar anyway, so for me that's kind of pointless. But anyway, I digress. The sleeves are finished in a matte chrome, which is certainly a unique finish for a sleeve in my opinion. I think that it does look pretty cool, but I have noticed that it does tend to mark up a little bit when I'm sliding my plates on and off. Thankfully, I am able to, for the most part, wipe it off with a cloth or a t-shirt, but it does really bring into question how this is gonna fare over time, over an extended period of time, with a lot of plates coming on and off. And because of that, I don't think that this would ever be my first choice for a sleeve finish, but I do think it's a heck of a lot better than the bare steel sleeves that the Absolute Power Bar used to have in the first iteration. As far as the end caps are concerned, there are a few things that I want to point out. The first is that the end caps are actually screwed in versus a snap ring that most of the other barbells you'll find out there are using. I don't know that this is really going to impact performance, but I do think it's pretty cool that Vulcan has done something a little bit different. You typically don't see a screwed in end cap in a barbell at this price point. Usually those are reserved for the higher range price bars. Now, as far as the rest of the end caps are concerned, this is really sort of a love-hate relationship for me. On one hand, I really love the fact that these end caps are actually metal versus the stickers that a lot of the other bars out there use. And I can appreciate the simplistic design of the end caps themselves, but what I really don't like is the fact that they put their warranty language right on the end cap. For me, this is just a little bit tacky, and I do think it detracts from the overall aesthetic of the end cap. Now, of course, this does bring into question the whole debate around the warranty issue. If you do remove the end caps here, you will unfortunately void the warranty. So if you see yourself removing the end caps to service your bar or maintain your bar over time, just know that this will void the warranty. I personally don't have a problem with this because I don't envision myself ever doing that, but it is a factor to consider if you think that you're going to do that. And by the way, it does look like they applied some Loctite on the inside of the end cap, so it will be very clear if you remove the end caps. So to wrap this up, I really just want to touch on the overall performance of the bar. And to put it simply, it really performs beautifully. I love it on squats, I really love it on deadlifts, and I like it on bench. With squats, as I mentioned, I do squat high bar primarily these days, so the passive center knurl is something that I find to be very comfortable. I also found this to be the case on front squats. And while I did use it for low bar and I didn't have any concerns whatsoever with it slipping, it may leave a little bit to be desired for those that are really wanting that aggressive centerpiece. With deadlifts, I just cannot say enough good things about this bar. Now, to be fair, I do prefer an aggressive knurl when I'm pulling, but again, this doesn't give me that overly sharp sensation, so I'd be comfortable going out and trying a PR or I'd be comfortable trying to hit some volume with this bar. And the other thing I notice is I don't have to chalk up as quickly as I do with some of the other bars. I think that's a factor of both the aggression of the knurl itself and the black oxide, which I found doesn't require you to chalk up as soon as some of the other applied coatings. And with bench, I like this bar with bench. I don't think that I'll have this in my permanent rotation on that lift, just primarily because I do prefer a more medium depth cut when I'm benching. But you can know that this is an all-around great power bar. It's going to function on bench beautifully. This is just a personal preference for me. I'll probably reserve my bench for some lighter knurled bars. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, guys, this is my current #1 pick for a power bar under $350. Yes, there are a couple drawbacks, namely the imminent oxidation that a black oxide bar will offer, and secondly, in my opinion, the heavily grooved sleeves, which is really just going to be the same for me with any grooved sleeve bar out there. I do think that the performance of this bar, the overall spec profile of this bar, the price of this bar, and the overall amazing knurl on this bar more than makes up for those two drawbacks. Ultimately, guys, I think this comes down to two questions. One, do you like an aggressive knurl? And two, do you mind having to maintain the bar over time and ultimately having a bar that is going to oxidize eventually? If you like an aggressive knurl and you don't mind having to regularly maintain it and risking having an unaesthetic bar eventually, then I simply don't feel that there is a better power bar out there under $350. I would love to know what you think is the best power bar out there under $350. After all, this is just my opinion, so if you feel there's a better bar out there at that price point, definitely let me know in the comments below. I'd love to see it. Well, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate you very much. I put links in the description below. And again, if you haven't yet subscribed yet, I definitely encourage you to do so. Until then, I will see you on the next video.